I'm feeling a little under the weather, so I stayed home from work. I mean, I can still work from here, kind of, and just do some stuff remotely, but it was one of those like my bones hurt, kind of sick, so I didn't do much of that today. Anyways, I'm gonna tell you guys a story, maybe two, we'll see. Um, so this is gonna be a story about how I damn near killed one of my elementary and middle school best friends, Daniel. he'll know exactly he'll know exactly what I'm talking about. It's if he watches this. Before I even tell the story, it's he brings it up all the time. Um, so I was visiting his grandparents' ranch for the first time. And it's a cool little ranch. I think it's I don't know how many acres it is actually. I'm not sure. Um, Neat little ranch. It's got a little couple trailers parked on it. It's for people to stay in and everything like that. It's actually um, where we had his bachelor party. It was a cool place. It is a cool place. So my very first time there, I was very young. I was in middle school. I want to say either sixth or seventh grade. Um, and back then, I was really into fighting with wooden swords, which I still love. I thoroughly enjoy a very well made anything, and a very well made wooden sword is no different. So we were running around. We had some bows with us, and we were shooting just fiberglass arrows at anything and everything out there. I damn near hit a quail actually with a little. It was a little. I think it's called the Little Sioux. It's a tiny green fiberglass compound bow, like a 10-pound pole or something like that. It's not great. Actually, I don't know where it's at. I don't remember. I gave it to somebody. I don't remember who I gave it to. But so, and this is not how I almost killed him. I'm not going to tell you that I almost shot my friend with a bow. I'm a little bit more responsible than that. Um, so I pulled back. This story turned into a different story. So I pulled back the bow, and there's this quail that was sitting on this branch. It was like a branch of a dead tree. It might have been like a hickory tree or something. I don't know. It had like this twisted bark, and it went straight up, and it had kind of one branch that jutted off to the side real quick, and it was dead. It was a dead tree. And so this quail landed on it, and so I drew the bow back. I want to say I was maybe only 15 yards away. I don't want to say 25 and sound amazing with the 10-pound bow. Like maybe 15 yards, maybe less than that. Probably like. Anyways, um, so I pull it back, and this bow doesn't have any sights on it, so I'm shooting line of sight along the arrow shaft, and I fire, and it hits directly below the quail, um, onto that branch, just ding, and I mean it's just a little blunt nose fiberglass like $2 arrow or something like that. So of course it doesn't stick, and it sends the quail off flying, and you know it was the time I almost first quail I almost shot basically. Um, so on that same trip, we had brought some of our wooden swords as well, and I had made a few out of like broom handles and stuff like that. I got some thicker pieces of wood, and cut them down on the table saw, and then shaped them with files. The handles, anyway, shaped the handles with some files, and I painted them up a little bit and wrapped them in that medical cloth tape stuff, just the handles. Made them look and feel pretty cool. Pretty thin profile for a blade. I don't remember. I don't remember what the wood was. I don't remember exactly what those swords were made out of. I do know that the two that I made for Daniel, um, or that Daniel and I had made together. I don't remember exactly how that one went down. I know it was my template that we used, but I don't remember if he's the one that made it or if I'm the one that made it, and then we worked on it together. But he, uh, uh, we went hiking with these swords. So, we had the swords in our belts and just kind of walking around and on the ranch, and we came into this. It wasn't a clearing; it was like the opposite of a clearing. So it was like it was like the brush had grown over this like dip down. It was almost like a little, not a cavern, but it was like a bowl of soil that trees and brush had grown over the top of to create like a little pocket on the inside of shelter, I guess. Um, and so there was this branch running across it, and we were like, this would be so cool to practice fighting in and just to hang out in and whatever. So we started hacking away at some of the leaves and twigs and stuff that were hanging down, and there was this big branch. I thought my sword could go through it. It could not. So this is where the details get a little bit fuzzy, because the way that I remember it is trying to slice through it with a wooden sword, mind you, trying to slice through it, and it kind of hitting, and then I'm forcing it so hard that it just kind of slides and then like karate chops downwards. The way that Daniel remembers it is I hit it and it bounces, and I try and hit it again and miss. So regardless of how it actually happened, I ended up hitting Daniel full force with all of my 6th or 7th grade might right on his dome. He instantly drops to the floor, and he's shaking and shivering. He drops his wooden swords. I get so furious with myself, I take my sword and I just throw it as far as I possibly can, which wasn't very far because we were in that enclosure thing. So just right into some brush. And I'm freaking out, and I'm yelling for his mom because his mom was there too. And I'm just yelling and screaming and trying to figure out, like, what the fuck do I do? How do I handle this? I'm checking him, he wouldn't let me get anywhere near what I presumed was going to be this huge gash. Luckily, the sword didn't have an edge to it at all. It was kind of like flat. And my dad was the one who helped me make that sword, and I assumed that he expected something like this would happen, so he didn't let me put an edge on it, which obviously was good in this particular situation. So he's like shivering and shaking, and he can't really walk very well. So I kind of get him up onto my shoulder, and the bulk, the earth portion of that little cavern thing was very steep, so I had to climb up and kind of drag him up as best as I possibly could. And we make it back to the trailers that are there on the property, and Sherry, his mom, comes running out, and he's like, "What did you do to my son?" And just started like freaking out. And Daniel said, "He hit me in the head with a stick." And I was so mad at myself. It was more embarrassing to me than anything else. Like, like, how could I think that was going to work? Like, me trying to chop through this big thick branch. It was thicker than my freaking sword, and it was made out of a stronger wood. Like, why would I think that would work? I don't know. But that's not important. So Daniel's freaking out, and eventually we get him to put some ice on his head, and he calms down a little bit, and Sherry calms down a little bit, and from that day, I never used that sword again. I only used shinai from there, because you can hurt somebody pretty bad with a shinai, but I have never accidentally knocked somebody out or almost knocked somebody out with a shinai, which is just a slatted bamboo practice sword. But yeah, that's the story about how I almost killed Daniel. I've got a couple other stories about how I almost killed some other friends, but we'll get to those ones a little bit later. Um, and yeah, so there's that story.